Prince Harry's week in Britain has taken another dramatic turn. Just when it seemed the main story was his crushing defeat in court, a new and deeply awkward allegation has emerged that people close to Harry and Meghan were involved in leaking sensitive information about private talks connected to Buckingham Palace, only for the Sussex side to later suggest that the palace itself was responsible. If true, that is not just embarrassing. It goes to the heart of the trust problem between Harry, Meghan, King Charles, and the royal institution. The allegation came through Charlotte Griffiths, the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large, the same journalist whose name became central to Harry's failed legal case against associated newspapers. In her account, a close advisor to Harry and Meghan contacted her in 2025, invited her to lunch, and gave information that led to a series of stories portraying the Sussexes in a more positive light. One of those stories involved an attempt to rebuild relations between Harry, Meghan, and King Charles. The key meeting was between Toby and Andre, one of the King's most senior communications figures, and Sussex representatives including Liam Maguire and Meredith Mains. It reportedly took place at the Royal Overseas League near Clarence House. Photographs of the meeting then appeared in the Mail on Sunday, showing the attendees on a balcony visible from a public park below. At the time,
breaking today, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle accused of leaking highly sensitive information about a private meeting with Buckingham Palace and representatives for King Charles, unbelievably, to the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large Charlotte Griffiths, the same woman who Prince Harry was trying to destroy in court. Charlotte Griffiths has made these revelations in an astonishing...
Many assumed the leak could not have come from the Sussex side. After all, Harry was suing associated newspapers. Why would his circle brief a journalist at the same newspaper group he was trying to destroy in court? But Charlotte Griffiths now says that is exactly what happened. She claims that the Sussex side helped feed the story, and that afterwards sources close to Harry and Meghan briefed another outlet suggesting they were frustrated the photographs had appeared, implying that the palace had betrayed their trust. That is the truly explosive part. Because if the Sussex side briefed the story and then allowed the palace to be blamed, it confirms the worst fears of those inside the royal household, that private contact with Harry can be turned into public leverage, and that even attempts at reconciliation can become part of a media strategy. This is why the allegation matters more than the gossip. It is not simply about who had lunch with whom, or who tipped off a photographer, or who briefed which newspaper. It is about whether Harry can be trusted with confidentiality. A reconciliation between a father and son cannot happen through a press strategy. It cannot happen if every meeting becomes a headline. It cannot happen if every private gesture is treated as content. And it certainly cannot happen if one side leaks and then points suspicion at the other. Harry has repeatedly insisted that his side does not leak in the way he accuses the palace of leaking. He has drawn a moral line between himself.
New front page article for today's Daily Mail, where she also reveals Prince Harry's latest drug shame, which involved pulling out some type of pill. She claims it may have been paracetamol, putting it on her tongue and saying, "Now I know I can trust you." This, by the way, was within seconds of meeting the then 27-year-old newspaper journalist. So Harry is in deep trouble.
And the royal machine. He has suggested that stories about him and Meghan must have been obtained through improper methods, yet this new account cuts directly against that image. That contradiction is now impossible to ignore. Harry attacks the press, but he needs the press. He condemns leaks, but stories favorable to him appear through media channels. He says the palace cannot be trusted, yet the palace is aside now asking whether it can trust him. That is the collapse at the center of the Sussex story. For King Charles, this creates a terrible dilemma. As a father, he may want to see Harry, he may want to believe that some form of healing is still possible, he may want a private relationship with his son and grandchildren, but as king, he has to protect the institution. And the institution cannot function if private conversations with Harry are treated as tactical opportunities. This is why any proposed meeting between Charles and Harry now becomes so complicated. A simple father-son meeting is no longer simple. It has to be planned, protected, managed, and insulated from leaks. The palace has to ask not only whether Harry wants reconciliation, but whether he can keep reconciliation private long enough for it to become real. The Buckingham Palace accommodation saga already raised these questions. According to reporting discussed in The Source.
But let me get to this astonishing revelation from Charlotte Griffiths that this meeting, and it was a highly significant moment because it was a meeting between Tobin Andre, who is the King's most senior royal courtier on the communications side of things. Full disclosure, he actually used to be my boss when I worked at the Daily Mail, but he is an old Etonian and very, very close to the King. And he had this secret meeting, which was pictured by the Mail on Sunday, with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's then senior staff members, Meredith Maines and Liam Maguire at...
Harry had been offered or invited to stay at Buckingham Palace, but the arrangement became chaotic. There were deadlines, there were delays. There was a reported refusal, followed by a change of mind. Then there was a public statement from Harry's side suggesting he would stay at the palace, followed quickly by palace officials saying that was not the case. That sequence made the palace look as if it had been dragged into a public pressure campaign. One source quoted in the discussion suggested that Harry's statement may have been a trap designed to force the palace to honor the offer for the sake of appearances. Whether or not that was the intention, the public effect was clear. The media was used to create pressure on King Charles. That is exactly the kind of behavior that makes trust impossible. If Harry wanted to stay at Buckingham Palace, the simplest path was private, respond on time, agree the logistics, respect the palace timetable, and keep the arrangements quiet. Instead, the story became another public drama about whether the king was welcoming or rejecting his son. That is not reconciliation. That is negotiation through headlines. The timing of the court judgment made the palace's caution look even more justified. Harry lost his case against Associated Newspapers and then described the result as a whitewash. That was not a mild statement. It was an accusation.
The months leading up to my court appearance, Harry's circle had been very leaky indeed. I can now reveal that during the summer of 2025, a close advisor to Harry and Meghan had contacted me out of the blue and invited me to lunch at the Ivy restaurant in London. As a result of information given to me at that lunch meeting, I placed a series of stories in the Mail on Sunday that portrayed the couple in a positive light. This included a front-page article. The attendees settled themselves on a balcony plainly visible from the public park below. The Mail on Sunday arranged for a photographer to capture the cozy but very embarrassing scene. In a development which speaks volumes for their integrity, sources close to the Sussexes then briefed the Daily Telegraph that they were very frustrated that the pictures of the Royal Overseas League gathering had ended up in the Mail on Sunday, suggesting quite falsely that the palace was responsible for a grotesque betrayal of trust.
That the legal process had failed him in a serious way. The courts operate in the name of the king. If Harry had issued that kind of attack while staying inside Buckingham Palace, it would have placed Charles in an impossible constitutional position. Imagine the optics. The king's son, under the sovereign's roof, attacking a senior court judgment delivered in the king's name. That would not have been merely awkward. It could have become a constitutional embarrassment. The palace appears to have understood the risk. If Harry had won the case, there were reportedly plans or expectations around a victory statement. If he lost, as he did, the risk was that he would respond angrily. Either way, Buckingham Palace could not become the backdrop for Harry's legal campaign. That is why the palace had to keep distance. Harry's response to the judgment has now raised fresh questions about his formal royal position. Some commentators argue that he should no longer be a councillor of state. Technically, as Rafe Hadelmanku pointed out in the discussion, Harry's residence abroad may already make the position practically unusable because councillors of state are expected to be domiciled in the United Kingdom. But symbolism matters. If Harry remains listed in a formal category while attacking the judiciary and living outside royal duty, the public sees contradiction.
Oh my God, Rafe, this is actually so serious now. Because, you know, all of the talk all along in terms of this sort of rapprochement between Harry and King Charles has been based on an understanding that it must stay confidential, Rafe, that he must not continue to leak information. Now, I have reported, Rafe, time and again that he can't do that. Like when he met Charles at Clarence House, information was immediately leaked into the US media. So I've always said Harry's never going to be able to do that. But we now have categorical proof that
the line of succession is a much more complicated issue involving Parliament and constitutional questions. But the royal website, the Councillor of State presentation, and the public framing of Harry's role are all easier places for the palace to create clarity. The monarchy cannot keep pretending that Harry is both inside and outside. He is not a working royal. He lives in California. He has built a public and commercial life around criticism of the press, the palace, and parts of the British establishment. He has accused systems around his father of failing him. He has used media channels to fight family battles. The official presentation of his role should reflect that reality. This is why some palace insiders reportedly describe Harry and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor as the Dukes of Hazzard. The circumstances are very different, and the scandals around Andrew belong in their own category, but the institutional problem is similar. Both men are non-working royal figures who continue creating reputational risk for the monarchy. For Charles, this must be exhausting. The king is dealing with his own health, the future of the institution, the transition toward William's reign, and the ongoing aftershocks of multiple family crises. He does not need another week of confusion over whether Harry is coming, staying, leaking, suing, appealing, or issuing statements against the courts. And yet that is exactly what happened.
I think it's quite clear. This is extremely serious. I mean, they once again expose themselves as immense hypocrites. You wonder whether this is something pathological, that Prince Harry simply can't stop himself, or is it Meghan saying this is what we must do? I mean, you know, I've been to the Royal Overseas League many times. It's the balcony where you sit on there. It's a huge place. That's the only place where you can really be seen by the public. So who was it who decided to sit out on that tiny balcony when there are so many other places to sit for the first thing? Look, trust has been completely destroyed between Harry and his family. There was an attempt, a very magnanimous, and all that became public as well, of course, in a very unfair way, with the Sussexes claiming that they had their invitation withdrawn, which wasn't true. So it's already been damaged. That attempt at rapprochement has already been set back. And now you get these revelations. I mean, it seems to me as if they are as far apart as ever. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if certainly the Prince of Wales was advising his father along similar lines and saying, well, look, he clearly, for all of the talk he has about wanting to reconcile with his family, he's actually shown no real, true, deep down conviction that that's what he wants to do.
Harry's team has tried to brief that he intends to move past the defeat and focus on charity work. That sounds sensible in theory. After such a bruising loss, the best thing Harry could do would be to stop feeding the drama, take time to reflect, and put his energy into causes that still matter. But the problem is that charity work cannot be insulated from the rest of his public behavior. Invictus is now at risk of being overshadowed again. Harry founded Invictus when he was still a working member of the royal family. It remains one of the most meaningful projects associated with him. It represents wounded service personnel, resilience, recovery, competition, and the dignity of people rebuilding their lives after sacrifice. It should be a cause above royal drama. But this week, Invictus has been pulled directly into the Sussex storm. The Royal Hospital Chelsea engagement was initially expected to have media coverage and possibly include Meghan. Then the plan changed. According to the briefing discussed in The Source, the public element was dropped because of extreme heat and lack of shade in the hospital grounds. In the end, Harry attended private meetings and a strategy session with former Invictus hosts and partners, with no reporters present and only an Invictus photographer capturing the moment.
Behind the scenes. What's most extraordinary today, Rafe, is that we did get the briefings to the newspapers, which I still think give Harry and his team far too much credence in terms of how he is going to cope with this court loss. And I do think it is just worth reminding everyone, Rafe, this is like not just this is not like, oh, you lost a case. Harry had made this his life's mission, okay? And it wasn't like a split decision. It was a total thumping by Justice Nicklin. But yet he's briefing to...
Critics immediately asked the obvious question, if Harry had won the court case, would the media still have been excluded? It is impossible to know. But the suspicion itself tells the story. Many believe Harry would have been very happy to face cameras if he had emerged victorious. Instead, after losing, the public-facing side was reduced. That makes the focus on charity message harder to accept at face value. Invictus cannot become the shield Harry uses when the rest of the story goes badly. The organization deserves better than that. People involved in Invictus may now be wondering how long Harry's association can remain entirely positive. He brings profile, history, and genuine connection to the military world. But he also brings headlines, legal defeats, security controversies, Meghan speculation, and palace tension. A charity has to consider whether the attention attached to its patron helps the cause or overwhelms it. This is a delicate point because Harry has done real good through Invictus. But the question is not whether he once brought value. The question is whether the current version of Harry brings too much chaos. That question is becoming harder to avoid. The Meghan issue makes it even more complicated. Meghan was not visibly by Harry's side during some of the most difficult moments of this trip. Commentators have described her absence as revealing, even calling her a fair-weather partner. That is a harsh phrase.
The Daily Telegraph, that he just thinks that he can keep calm and carry on and focus on his charity work now, which to me just feels totally delusional. But the Daily Telegraph's Victoria Ward, who is their deputy royal editor and is the person who gets all of the contact from Harry and Meghan's team, says that he does plan to do just that. A bullish Prince Harry has just pledged to put the defeat behind him and shift his focus to his charity work. They report that the Duke has not discussed whether to appeal the verdict with David Sherborne, his barrister, and is not expected to have any further contact in days to ask the court for permission to appeal. So there is plenty of time for him to sit down and absorb it all when this week's work is behind him. Plans to deliver a victory statement, which were being thrashed out right up until the ruling was made public, were swiftly shelved. The plan to have both print and broadcast media at an Invictus engagement that took place at the Royal Hospital Chelsea on Wednesday had already been abandoned. The Duke was originally expected to be joined by his wife, the Duchess of Sussex, for private meetings and a reception involving Chelsea pensioners before he decided it was unsafe for her and the children.
And no one outside the marriage knows the private truth. But public optics matter. Harry has often stood by Meghan through controversies, interviews, public criticism, and moments that damaged his own standing with the royal family. When Harry faces a humiliating defeat and Meghan is not present, people notice. If Meghan appears at the Invictus countdown, the story becomes Meghan. If she does not appear, the story becomes Meghan's absence. That is the trap the Sussexes now live inside. Every move is interpreted through strategy because the public no longer trusts the surface. Some speculate that Meghan may still come to Britain or Europe in connection with Althorpe and a future Diana-related project. That remains speculation, but it connects to a broader concern that Diana's memory is being used as royal currency. Harry may sincerely want his children connected to their grandmother's legacy, but when potential visits, photographs, and family moments are discussed in the same breath as documentaries and anniversary projects, people question the motives. Again, the issue is trust. If Harry and Meghan had spent the last few years protecting privacy consistently, people might read these moments differently. But after Oprah, Netflix, Spare,
The event, the Duke attended a series of private meetings before joining a strategy session with former Invictus Games hosts and partners There were no reporters present and just an Invictus photographer to capture the moment for posterity. Today, he was back in the public eye, of course, and then on Friday, he will be met with a gaggle of photographers, an event marking the one-year countdown to next year's Invictus Games. But Rafe, in all seriousness, the only question that I am hearing asked now with people involved in the Invictus Games is for how long Prince Harry can actually even be connected.
Public briefings, court cases, and repeated use of private family material. Many people assume that private emotion may eventually become public content. That is the price of the Sussex media model. The privacy argument is also weakened by the reality that private royal travel is possible. The late Queen made private trips, other royals travel privately. William and Catherine take family holidays without being photographed, even in the age of smartphones. It is possible to move discreetly when there is genuine will, careful planning, and cooperation with the appropriate people. So when Harry and Meghan suggest that Britain is impossible because of security, but also allow detailed public speculation about where they may go, who they may meet, and what they may attend, critics see contradiction. If safety is the priority, silence helps. Briefing does not. The media strategy around the Buckingham Palace stay appears to confirm the same contradiction. Harry condemns the press, but uses media pressure when useful. He complains about leaks, but his side is now accused of leaking sensitive reconciliation-related information. He suggests the palace cannot be trusted, while the palace has to worry that every gesture may be turned into a public story. That is why the latest Charlotte Griffiths allegation is so damaging. It does not merely embarrass Harry in relation to one article. It undercuts years of moral positioning. Harry has insisted
association with so many other of the foundations and projects that he launched. They've all fallen around him in tatters, and this is all that he has left. And, you know, he's clinging to it as if it's a life buoy, because it's essentially the only thing keeping him and keeping his reputation afloat. I mean, let's be clear here. He has suffered the most devastating of defeats, an immense humiliation at the hands of the British legal system. It must be gnawing at him. He's putting on a brave face because his PR team have told him to put on a brave face. But you can bet your bottom dollar that media presence would have been there at the Royal Hospital Chelsea if he had won.
That stories in the press must have come from improper methods. But if his own circle was briefing one of the very journalists he was accusing, the public will ask how many other stories have been shaped by Sussex sources while blame was directed elsewhere. This is exactly why the Daily Mail defeat matters beyond legal costs. The case was not only about whether Harry could win damages, it was about whether his worldview would be validated. He wanted the court to confirm that his suspicions about the press were correct. Instead, the result has given journalists a powerful reply. Not every story comes from hacking, blagging, or unlawful conduct. Sometimes stories come from contacts. Sometimes they come from social circles, sometimes they come from people close to the subject, and sometimes, according to Charlotte's account, they come from the very side later claiming betrayal. That is devastating. It also connects to the wider free press debate. Camilla Tominey and others have argued that the Associated Newspaper's victory is also a defeat for the hacked-off campaign and for efforts to revive something like Leveson 2. The claim is that this case was not just about Harry, Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley, Doreen Lawrence, and other claimants. It was part of a broader attempt to increase state regulation of the press and make it harder for newspapers to report freely on powerful people.
His victory statement or film something from within Buckingham Palace. I mean, that is just so bad. Rafe, can I ask you what you think about Meghan's disappearing act, though? Because the one thing that you will say about Prince Harry is that he is always there for that woman, no matter what terrible things she does. I mean, I think of the example of her giving, this moment. Do you remember that? When she sort of mocked her curtsy to the late Queen, and Harry just had to sit there and shut up. And he was clearly horrified, but it's, he sort of supports his wife through all of these. The Daily Mail it was so consequential, and she's just not there, Rafe. What do you think that says about her?
Well, she's a fair weather wife, isn't she? She's only there for the good days. She's only there when the sun is shining. When the clouds form, she rushes off. Her California character can't deal with cloudy skies. But I'll go back to that in a moment. But can you imagine? Because when he lost that case, he attacked the judges. He attacked his father's judges. It's the king's law, and he undermined the rule of law by calling it a whitewash. Imagine if he had said that from within Buckingham Palace. Let's just put that.
Oh my God, I know. No.
That is a serious issue. The press must be accountable. Phone hacking and unlawful information gathering were real scandals. Victims of illegal press behavior deserve justice. But accountability cannot become a tool for silencing legitimate reporting. If wealthy and famous people can use suspicion and litigation to intimidate newspapers, then the public loses access to information about those with power. That is why this judgment is seen by some as a victory not just for the Mail, but for the public. Newspapers have exposed political scandals, financial wrongdoing, hypocrisy, and abuse of power. They often do so imperfectly. They sometimes behave badly. But without a free press, the rich and powerful face far less scrutiny. That includes royals, celebrities, politicians, and media-friendly public figures who would rather control their image than be questioned. Harry's critics believe he does not want a freer, fairer press. They believe he wants a press he can control. That may be too harsh as a full judgment of his motives. Harry's trauma around the press is real. His anger has roots in painful history. But the practical effect of his campaign has been to place pressure on journalism and to treat unfavorable reporting as suspect by default. This case has now pushed back against that.
To the Meghan thing, that is why I think he can no longer be a Councillor of State. I know that you think he should stay in the line of succession, but like a Councillor of State, tell me if I'm wrong, Rafe, because you're the expert on this stuff, but a Councillor of State is there to effectively sign off laws and do official duties on behalf of the king if the king is incapacitated in some way. So how on earth can you have someone as a Councillor of State who is criticising the king's own judiciary? But first, do you remember when energy used to feel effortless? You'd get through.
The irony is that Harry's defeat may have strengthened the press he wanted to weaken. Journalists may now feel less intimidated. Newspapers may feel more confident defending lawful reporting. Commentators may feel freer to challenge Harry's claims. And the public may be more skeptical the next time Harry says a story must have been obtained improperly. That is the opposite of what he wanted. So what happens now? Harry technically has time to consider an appeal. The Telegraph briefing suggested he had not yet discussed next steps with David Sherborne and would focus on his charity engagements before returning home. That is the sensible message. But the statement calling the result a whitewash suggests the emotional response is not settled. If Harry appeals, the drama continues. If he does not appeal, he has to accept one of the most humiliating losses of his public life. If he focuses on Invictus, he may begin to rebuild some credibility. But if Invictus remains surrounded by Meghan speculation, palace tension, and legal fallout, the cause will keep being overshadowed. The path forward requires restraint. That means no more public pressure on the king, no more briefing private meetings, no more using the media to force palace decisions, no more claiming betrayal while leaking through friendly channels, no more using charity events as safe ground after creating storms elsewhere.
Remember what happened when he went, when Spare was published and when it began to fall around his ears? When he kept talking about his frozen todger and his chapstick reminding him of his mother when he rubbed it on there, she was nowhere to be seen. You have to remember this, Meghan always thinks about herself. She married him in order to advance her own social status and her own social career. She wanted to be a Martha Stewart, and she's achieved what she achieved on the back of Prince Harry. This has always been a marriage in which the key target, the key beneficiary was Meghan, and Harry was simply there to officiate for her.
No more attacking institutions whenever they do not deliver the desired result. It also requires accepting that reconciliation, if it ever happens, will be slow and private. Not a headline, not a balcony photograph, not a strategic lunch, not a carefully briefed meeting. It would require Harry to prove over time that he can keep confidence, respect boundaries, and stop turning family into leverage. Right now, the palace appears to believe he has not proven that. And after Charlotte Griffith's latest claims, it is easy to understand why. This is where the entire idea of a royal thaw becomes almost impossible to sustain. Any serious thaw would require quiet. It would require months, maybe years, of private behavior that shows Harry has changed. It would require no leaks after calls, no briefings after meetings, no public pressure if an invitation is declined, and no weaponizing of the children as emotional leverage. But the pattern keeps moving in the opposite direction. Whenever there is a hint of contact, it becomes a story. Whenever there is a possibility of a meeting, the media hears about it. Whenever the palace tries to create a private path, the details begin circulating. That may not always come directly from Harry himself. Royal reporting is complex, and sources can be friends, aides, former staff, sympathetic contacts, or people trying to shape events from the side.
About her not wanting to be in the UK because of the security issues and so forth. She could have come here so many times anonymously. You know, the Queen used to go to the Kentucky Derby to visit her friends who were horse breeders there privately. Prince Charles, Prince Edward used to go to Canada and Australia on private visits. We were none the wiser. There is no reason Harry, Meghan and the kids couldn't have gone on a private jet to Balmoral.
William and Catherine go on their private family holidays even now. And Rafe, think that's even now in the age of social media where people have smartphones and everything, they still go on these holidays. They're never pictured. It's totally private. And Harry and Meghan don't want to.
But for the palace, the effect is the same. Contact with Harry brings risk. That is why William's position becomes so important, even when he is not the central figure in this particular story. Charles may still be tempted by hope. William has to think beyond hope. He has to think about what kind of monarchy he will inherit, what kind of precedent is being set, and whether his own family will be safe from future disclosure if Harry is allowed back into proximity. William has already seen private messages involving Catherine printed in spare. He has seen family conversations become global content. He has seen Harry discuss physical conflict, personal grievances, and deeply private tensions. So if Harry's circle is now accused of briefing even sensitive reconciliation-related meetings, William's caution will only harden. From William's perspective, this is not vindictiveness. It is risk management. Catherine's position is similar. Before everything reached this point, there may have been a time when she hoped the brothers could repair their relationship. She comes from a close family, and that instinct would make sense. But the past several years have changed the calculation. Catherine has had her own health battle. She has young children. She has a future queen's role to prepare for. She has no reason to invite more instability into her private life. That is why the Sussex story increasingly belongs to Charles rather than William.
Prince and Duke of York last year. Courtiers saw the King's patience snap again last weekend over Harry. On Monday morning, breaking news alerts quoted the Prince's spokesman who confirmed that Harry had accepted an offer to stay at Buckingham Palace. Not true, said palace officials moments later. Any reporters who get updates from the disappearing messages on Harry's spokesman's WhatsApp group must have suffered from whiplash. Harry is Captain Chaos, says one bewildered observer. One source even suggested that Harry's spokesman's statement that the Duke would stay at Buckingham Palace may have been a trap, and that the Duke would deliver an on-camera reaction from an undisclosed location set alarm bells through the palace. If Harry, and this is the point that you were making, Rafe, delivered an excoriating attack on the King's courts from under the sovereign's roof, it could prove embarrassing for Charles. Now, we've discussed that, Rafe, but the thing that I just wanted to point out in this piece, because remember, this is the Times, it's the newspaper of record, Kate Mancy is a senior figure in the Royal Rota and is briefed a lot by Buckingham Palace. And the thing that really shocked me here, but I think they're correct, by the way, I think it's completely true, is that the reason Prince Harry...
Charles may still manage occasional father-son contact. William is unlikely to allow that contact to become institutional rehabilitation. The palace also has to think about staff. This is often forgotten. Courtiers, communications aides, security teams, household staff, and officials are not background props. They are people whose work becomes harder when one member of the family operates through constant public uncertainty. If Harry says one thing privately and another thing emerges publicly, staff have to clean it up. If arrangements shift at the last minute, staff have to rearrange them. If briefing creates pressure, officials have to respond without making the monarchy look petty. That kind of strain builds resentment, and the Buckingham Palace accommodation story was a perfect example. The palace was not simply deciding whether Harry could have a room. It was being asked to handle security, staffing, timing, public optics, the court judgment, possible statements, and the risk that the King's residence could be used as a backdrop for Harry's legal anger. No responsible institution would treat that casually. This is why the idea that Harry can now simply focus on charity work feels too easy. Charity work cannot erase the institutional damage. It can help Harry rebuild.
To pressure King Charles into reversing his decision. And don't you just think, Rafe, that is so cretinous? And again, here we have a man who's constantly moaning about the media, but he will use the media to try and shame and bully his own father. I just think it's the lowest of the low.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's crass and it's so obvious. I mean, these are mind games and attempts at manipulation, which are so easy to see through. I mean, no, you have to be, a dunce at the royal household not to see what his game is. But I mean, what is his long game? I mean, it's also such a short-termist thing. If you really want to heal things with your father, if you want to show that there's trust there and build things back to whatever, who knows, a balcony appearance in 10 years or whatever the long game is, this is not how you achieve it. And let's remember what happened here. He went into a long sulk because Ravik, who decide whether he gets full security or not, they decided he wouldn't get security during this visit. And so then rather than respond to the kind invitation of his father to stay at Buckingham Palace, rather than respond by the end of last week as he was told, he went into this long strop. And then a day after the deadline, he then declined.
But only if the behavior around it changes. Otherwise, the charity becomes part of the repair strategy rather than the mission itself. Invictus is especially vulnerable because it is so closely tied to Harry's identity. The games began with a noble purpose, and they still carry that purpose. But when Harry's personal reputation falls, Invictus feels the tremor. Sponsors, partners, veterans, families, and organizers may not speak publicly, but they will be aware of the risk. They have to ask whether the founder's presence is helping the mission or bringing too much distraction. The coming Birmingham Games will be a major test. In normal circumstances, a major Invictus event in the United Kingdom would naturally attract support from the wider royal family. The monarchy has deep military connections. The King, Queen, Prince and Princess of Wales, Princess Anne, and the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh all have roles or associations that make support for service personnel natural. The cause itself is bigger than Harry. But because Harry is attached to it, every royal attendance question becomes politically loaded. If Charles attends, is he supporting the veterans or endorsing Harry? If William stays away, is he protecting his family or snubbing wounded service personnel? If Catherine attends, does that create an image of reconciliation? If no senior royals attend,
all of our content directly, and we're not reliant on an algorithm there, but it's really terrifying what's going on. But Camilla Tominey of the Daily Telegraph, Rafe, actually made a very good point that this loss is good news on that front for the British public, because it means that it's less likely that this intense regulation of the British media will be able to happen. So I'll get your reaction, but I just want you to watch what she's had to say on this, Rafe.
Everyone's understandably focusing on Prince Harry losing this court case against associated newspapers, but we need to look at the bigger picture here.
Does Harry blame the palace for failing the veterans? This is exactly the sort of impossible public trap that the Sussex dynamic creates. A good cause becomes a symbolic battlefield. The people who should be at the center, the competitors, are pushed to the side while everyone interprets body language, seating plans, and photographs. The only way out is strict clarity if the royal family supports Invictus. It has to be clear that the support is for the competitors, not for Harry's personal campaign. There can be no staged family reunion. no use of the event to force emotional reconciliation, and no implication that attendance means all is forgiven. If Harry truly cares about Invictus, he should want that clarity too. He should want the event protected from his own drama. That may require him to step back from being the center of every frame. It may require Meghan, if she attends, to resist turning the event into a fashion or body language story. It may require the Sussex team to stop briefing attendance and security questions as if every logistical detail is a plot point. It may require Harry to accept that the royal family can support veterans without supporting his version of the family feud. That would be mature. Whether it is likely is another question. The same maturity is needed in relation to Diana. Harry's grief over his mother is one of the most defining parts of his life, and no one should dismiss that.
For those involved in Hacked Off, the campaign group that is trying to introduce state regulation of the press, we know that was the ultimate aim because Leveson 2.0 was mentioned no less than 55 times by the complainant's lawyer, David Sherborne. So this isn't just a victory for freedom of the press, but also for the British public. Because without newspapers reporting without fear or favour, then there is no accountability for the rich and famous. You have to remember that it was newspapers that broke the story of, say, the expenses scandal, of Angela Rayner not paying enough Nigel Farage.
Rafe, do you think she's got a point?
He has a point, and certainly it's a very bad day for Hacked Off, and it certainly doesn't mean we're going to have another Leveson 2. But make no mistake, there are dark days ahead for all of us in the media and all people who like to watch independent media. It's already the case that the Telegraph has now been bought by a massive company internationally, which is far more left-wing and centrist than the Telegraph has been historically. It's the case now that the Spectator, the editor there, is now Michael Gove, a man who won't apologize.
But Diana cannot be used as a permanent justification for every dispute with the press, every security demand, every criticism of the palace, and every attempt to frame Meghan as a woman facing the same fate. Diana's relationship with the press was complicated. She was pursued, yes. She was intruded upon, yes. But she also knew journalists, spoke to them, used them, and understood media power. That complexity does not erase Harry's pain, but it does challenge the simplicity of his narrative. If Harry wants to honor Diana, he may need to stop using her memory as a weapon in present-day disputes. He could honor her through service, through discretion, through care for his children, through meaningful charity, and through a life less consumed by battle. Instead, Diana's name keeps being pulled back into legal fights, media arguments, security claims, and possible content projects. That is why people become suspicious, even when Harry may be acting from sincere emotion. The sincerity is no longer enough, because the pattern around it has become too public. Pattern is everything in reputation. One leak can be dismissed. One awkward briefing can be explained. One legal defeat can be absorbed. One public statement can be walked back. But when the same behaviors repeat, the public forms a conclusion. And the conclusion forming around Harry is that he wants the benefits of privacy without the discipline of privacy. He wants confidential meetings, but also helpful stories. He wants reconciliation, but also leverage. He wants charity work, but also media attention. He wants to condemn the press, but also brief the press. He wants to be seen as independent, but still needs royal connection. That is not a stable public identity. For Meghan, the same instability exists in a different form. Her lifestyle brand asks the public to see warmth, ease, taste, and domestic calm, but the Sussex story surrounding it is anything but calm. Legal defeats, palace rows, security arguments, and questions about whether she will or will not appear beside Harry all cut against the image she is trying to sell. A brand built on serenity cannot thrive inside constant conflict. That may be why critics believe Meghan is selective about when she appears. When the story is glamorous, she can bring attention. When the story is damaging, absence may feel safer. But absence creates its own story, especially when the couple's public image has long depended on visible unity. The Sussexes are trapped by their own optics. Together, they distract. Apart, they invite speculation. Silent, they look strategic. Speaking, they inflame the story. That is what happens when a brand is built around narrative control. Eventually, the public begins to read every move as a tactic. For Meghan, the lesson is similar. If she wants a private life, it must be private, even when privacy is less useful than publicity. If she wants to support Harry, support cannot only appear when the optics are favorable. If she wants the Sussex brand to move forward, it cannot keep relying on Diana, the King, Althorp, Buckingham Palace, security disputes, and royal wounds. The Sussexes cannot escape the royal family while using it as their main currency. That is the contradiction that keeps catching up with them. This week has exposed it again. The alleged leak, the palace pressure, the court defeat, the whitewash statement, the Invictus overshadowing Meghan's absence, the Councillor of State debate, and the wider free press implications. Every piece points in the same direction. Trust has been broken. And without trust, there can be no serious reconciliation, no stable royal role, no convincing privacy argument, and no clean future for Harry inside the orbit of the monarchy. The king may still love his son, but love is not the same as institutional trust. And right now, trust is the one thing Harry appears to have lost almost completely.